Thank you, and good afternoon. As you can probably tell, the program called for Dr. Himanshu Modi, and I do not even look like him, but he's a little shorter. He's a very fine scientist, and we're very fortunate to have him as our Director of R&D at our company in the United States. He's tied up right now with a very important project. He's working with the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, so I come in his stead. But it's good to be here, and it's a real pleasure to be with you today. I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit this afternoon about allergy testing. And over the next 40 minutes, I hope to talk to you a little bit about the challenges that we face in allergy testing today. There are millions, literally countless millions of allergy sufferers. I also want to talk to you about some of the solutions that are possible as we contribute to the field of diagnostic medicine and certainly allergy and patient care for those patients. Back in the early 1970s, I attended a clinical chemistry meeting in Boston. I listened to Isaac Asimov, the noted and famous scientist and author. I listened to him talk about robots and the future of diagnostic medicine. I heard him talk about the way that you could maybe someday wave a wand across your forearm and literally diagnose patient disease. That was then, and you know what? We're not there quite yet, but we're well on the way. A lot of progress has been made since the 70s, as you well know. Compared to the vision that Isaac Asimov had, allergy has not progressed quite as well. In fact, if we look at the other disease states in cardiology or oncology, so much has happened since the 1970s, as you well know. This is not necessarily the case in allergy. I have heard it said, for example, this patient is not sick, they just have allergies. That's a sad state of affairs. The American allergist, I believe, has held back the process and the research with respect to allergy. I believe that many of the answers for allergy simply do not exist. On the other hand, let's talk about the challenges, let's talk about the opportunities that will lead to solutions for better care. The science of allergy is a very interesting topic. Let me first of all introduce myself. My company is Arlington Scientific. We are out in Western Canada in the state of Utah, close to this Salt Lake City. Our company has been around for a long time, 30 years. We're a market leader, as they mentioned, in the syphilis arena. We have an international part of our business. We actually manufacture for the USA market about 80% of our products, but we export about 20% as well. We're fully compliant with the Food and Drug Administration as we manufacture products according to CFR 820 that regulates and guides everything that we do. Our company is multifaceted. We're really people. I'm sorry, might be a good idea to bring you along here. We're multifaceted, as this word cloud would tell you. We're people. Dr. Modi, our Director of R&D, are individual people. We're primarily known as a manufacturer, though, and that manufacturing is targeted to the USA marketplace. Our focus is allergy, and our focus is syphilis. We selected these niche markets, and we do a pretty good job at those. But now, why is it important, or what is the significance of allergy and this in vitro allergy diagnostics? 20% of the world suffers from allergy, and certainly in children below 6 years of age, this is a much higher percentage. As the immune system develops, they tend to grow out of this allergy, fortunately, in a good number of cases. It's a chronic disease, the leading cause of chronic disease. Allergic reactions are increasing globally, and if you don't believe me on that, maybe just go to Japan and see the number of masks that are worn round the clock by individuals that commute on the subway trains and live in Japan. It's enormous medical cost. The CDC in 2012 published the figure of 25 million Americans alone had asthma. That's 25 million. If you extrapolated that to India, it would be a pretty big number. Why should we diagnose allergy? And the answer here is really for evidence-based medicine. And what that can mean is less hospitalization, less ER visits, less medications being used, but maybe most of all, less symptomatic and problems with association with the patient. It's easier now to predict the disease and its severity and treat it accordingly, prescribe those better treatments with the advent of diagnostic allergy, and then relieve some of those childhood asthma sufferers. These economic issues are very significant. The economics, just to give you an example, the United States spends greater than $36 billion a year in allergy asthma treatment alone. The cost per patient per annum ranges from $2,600 to over $12,000 per patient in the United States. There are different types of allergies. As you live in this environment that we are, all of these are different types of allergies that, I'm sorry, keep up with this, I'm sorry. The foods, the seasonals, the pollens, the inhalants, all of these are very, very prevalent in our environment today. What are the disease states? You should be telling me and talking about this, but basically the illnesses that you see are the allergic rhinitis, the eczema, the anaphylaxis, of course, the worst situation with respect to allergy. The symptoms we're all very familiar with, and I'm sure a day doesn't go by that you don't see these symptoms in front of you on a very regular basis. Allergic disease treatment. What's the best treatment for allergy? The number one in my books is avoidance. Can you remove that cat that has the offending allergens, and the parents will let the cat sleep with a child? Easiest situation is to get rid of the cat. It's hard to move out of the environment sometimes that you're in, but you know what? Sometimes that's the only case and the best case for getting that problem solved. Prescription medicines and over-the-counter are very popular in the United States. The decongestants, antihistamines, the steroids, sprays even, and the eye drops are used every day for treatment of allergy. Immunotherapy is an excellent way to treat. Allergy shots are very common, and of course you know a lot about those. Just last year, the Food and Drug Administration approved grasses, a few of the grasses anyway, for sublingual immunotherapy. So slit testing is now available and approved in the United States. I think one of the most incredible things for the future to look at, and the growth, is in companion diagnostics. Allergy itself lends itself to companion diagnostics, but of course, probably the first companion diagnostics that you're probably familiar with or reading about would be just the example of glucose testing and then the administration of insulin for better patient care. But now the companion diagnostics work very well in allergy and maybe have a lot to do with the future of allergy. We have a pharmaceutical customer in Korea that purchases an allergy screen, uses it for their patients, of course, to prescribe the pharmaceuticals that they in turn sell to the patient. Another situation would be this SLIT, the slit that has been approved by the Food and Drug Administration to diagnose correctly those grass allergens and then treat sublingually, would be a good example of companion diagnostics. But basically, companion diagnostics will give us efficiency, cost effectiveness, and ultimately better patient care. A little bit of the history of allergy testing. The PK test we're probably all very familiar with. It was the German gynecologist and physical therapist that got together. One of them had a fish allergy. They injected the patient from the fish allergy intradermally and watched for a reaction. And sure enough, 24, 48 hours, the wheal and flare appeared. and that was the basis of the PK test and the founding of that way back in 1921. Skin testing is very common in the United States anyway. Prick testing, where a drop of allergen is administered to the skin, and then either a scratch or a needle will prick the skin and see if the reaction occurs. Intradermal testing is very similar, with a needle injection intradermally, and watch for the wheal and flare. Patch testing is fairly common, and 48, maybe 72 hours later, you will watch for the reaction. There's some inherent problems with this type of skin testing. Certainly one of those is that to administer these tests, the prescription drugs and the drugs that are used, including the antihistamines or even an antidepressant, need to be discontinued for 7 days, and that's maybe not always in the best interest of the patient. The trauma or patient discomfort always has to be considered in this situation. And you know, what everything is leading to is a much more quantitative and important specific analysis, and the subjectivity associated with skin testing leaves a lot to be desired. Of course, there's always the risk of anaphylaxis. The EpiPens, epinephrine are pretty much done away with as we look at serum tests for testing allergy. Okay, serum testing versus skin testing. You know, a single allergen can be tested, a single blood draw can easily be performed, and it's much less invasive than a skin test. It can be less expensive because of maybe the patient time and travel and effort to get to the testing site. Multiple visits are often necessary, and I guess it would be the trauma, the travel, and time that would take the patient that can be accounted for in ways. Skin testing can be more expensive in the United States. The workup is generally about $1,000. I think when Isaac Asimov had these visions of the future, I don't think he really intended for this to be the answer for allergy testing. The wheal and flare that's associated with the skin testing is probably not something he looked at. On the other hand, a pretty simple blood test can be made, and simultaneously separate allergens can be monitored quite effectively with the advent of IgE testing. Tests that are available there on the market would include a screen which we produce. It's relatively inexpensive. It's easy to perform, can be done at the smallest of laboratories, and would lead to maybe further investigation with a positive result. The product I want to talk to you about mainly today is the IVT Allergy Nano. This is the state of the art. It's a multiplex analysis, and we'll talk more about that. We offer these two tests. Phadia is certainly the market leader in the world. Thermo Fisher owns that company now, doing a fine job. Immunocap is their branded product, a very fine product. Mediwis, Dr. Fuchs from Germany, Mast Imulite from, Siemens, and Hitachi represent some of the manufacturers of good allergy products out there right now that are based on IgE. Phadia, I have to say a few words about Phadia. It was 39 years ago that I went to work for Phadia, and I spent 4 or 5 years with Phadia, the Swedish company, and got started in the allergy business at that time. But I have nothing but the greatest respect for them. I give them full credit for the discovery of the IgE molecule and working with this over the years to develop some very sophisticated and very, very promising improvements with respect to allergy care. Phadia should get the credit for it, and they certainly do. As I mentioned, they've been owned over the years by Upjohn, by Pfizer, by other companies. I think the home that they found now with Thermo Fisher is a very, very good one, and they'll do extremely well.